For centuries, the world has marveled at the military genius of the Mongol Empire, a force that reshaped Eurasia under the leadership of Genghis Khan and his successors. However, hidden beneath the dust of history lies a powerful and often overlooked truth: the women played a pivotal role in the rise and rule of the Mongol Empire. They were formidable diplomats, warriors, and political strategists who wielded extraordinary influence. Today, on Timeless Mongolia, we explore the remarkable role of Mongol queens and the noble women in shaping the empire's military and the political destiny. To help us unravel this fascinating history, we are joined by Dr. Brunata Niklan, a renowned historian specializing in Mongol and the Middle Eastern studies, who will shed the light on this extraordinary woman who stood at the heart of one of history's greatest empires. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Brunata Niklan. To start our conversation, the Mongol Empire, like most medieval societies, was constructed around a patriarchal system where power was traditionally concentrated in the hands of men. However, historical accounts reveal that Mongol women exercised a significant influence in governance, diplomacy, and military strategy. What unique aspects of Mongol society allowed women to hold such positions of authority, shape the governance and the stability of the empire?
I would say that there is no definite answer to these questions. Instead, what we do as historians of the Mongol Empire normally is that we rely on the sources of the period in order to construct certain theories that we hope help us to understand better the role of women in medieval Mongol society. Now, one prevailing theory that has been put forward by some scholars is that the role of women, or the high status that women acquire in terms of politics, economic, and religion in the Mongol Empire has to do with their nomadic lifestyle. This theory explains that because in nomadic societies traditionally women and men had different set of activities or were supposed to do different tasks in the household, that sort of divided the idea of what men and women should do. And in the case of women, what happened was that because they were in charge of all the activities of the camp, that is the economy of the camp, the politics that you have to deal with other camps as well in Mongolia, while the men were herding the cattle outside, that will position these women in a higher position that will allow them to be more outspoken, if you wish, that vis-a-vis other societies that were non-nomadic. That's one of the theories that has been put forward some years ago. Another theory puts greater emphasis on the intrinsic characteristics of the Mongol Empire, of women in the Mongol Empire in particular. And that means that it was actually the specificity of the context in which the Mongol Empire developed that gave these women certain autonomy and influence compared to other contemporaries or other contemporary societies that the Mongols encountered along the way. I do not see a contradiction between the fact that the medieval Mongol society was a patriarchal and patrilineal society and women acquire a high status. It is true that men were entitled for the majority of power in the Mongol Empire, but that didn't prevent the women from acquiring very prominent outspoken positions and have their own agency in their own. And this perhaps has to do with the fact that women also play very important roles as wives, mothers, and daughters of these rulers in the Mongol Empire. So they were very good at using this position to acquire or to fulfill their own agencies, especially in terms of politics. And I think their family connections also enabled them to exert considerable influence behind the scenes and even in formal governments throughout the history of the Mongol Empire, and we have several examples of that.
Following on the Horulta, the Grand Assembly, where major political discussions, including the selection of the Great Khan, were made, was the cornerstone of Mongol governance. Unlike in any other medieval societies, Mongol women were the active participants in these councils. Some were even instrumental in influencing the outcome of the leadership successions. What role did this woman play in shaping the empire's leadership? And can you provide examples where their presence at the Horulta directly altered the course of Mongol history?
The role of women in the political development of the Mongol Empire, I believe, is essential to understand how the empire evolved, because women are in contact with the history of the empire from China to the Middle East. They are constantly appearing in the sources, and they are very prominent actors in the development of the Mongol Empire. Now, the Kurultais were indeed elective assemblies of the Chinese nobles that, rather than simply selecting a ruler, I think it's important to understand that they often serve as a place where decisions were confirmed, and decisions that were made after extensive negotiations, alliances, and sometimes even purges of the members of the Chinese elite. Women participated in these assemblies because they were key stakeholders of the empire's power structure and legitimators and defenders of, for example, the role or the right of their sons to the throne. They were also owners of significant wealth and also managed large households and territories. Many courtly women were in charge of these territories, and that gave them power to impose their own political agendas during leadership transitions. That was when these assemblies occurred. Now, one of the most notable examples, perhaps, of an influential woman is the case of Sorghantani Beki, the wife of Tului, and therefore daughter-in-law of Genghis Khan. And we have from many sources stories of how she very skillfully played and navigated the political scenes and arena of the Mongol Empire, and after long conversations, diplomatic exchange, and playing the role in the shadow of managing the empire, managed to promote her son Monke to the Great Khan in 1251. And she did so by establishing alliances. She did so by playing political card in favor of her son, and in doing so, she was one of the big players that managed to change the dynastic line from the sons of Ogedei to the sons of Tului, marking a very important moment in the history of the Mongol Empire. She is very well regarded in the sources, especially the Tuluid sources, because she is the mother of Monke, but also she was the mother of Kublai Khan of China and the mother of Hulegu, the one who conquered Iran. So that shows how powerful this woman ended up being, and how she managed to promote all her sons to very important positions across the empire. But also I would like to say that this is not the only example. We have other women with similar political agencies that managed to change the history of the empire at different parts of the empire, not only in the central court, but also in local areas of the empire, especially after the empire divided in 1260. And finally, women were always present in these Kurultais, and that, I think, in a way show us how relevant they were considered by the empire in itself. So we always find these women present in Kurultais, being part of the decision making of the empire.
While Mongol men are widely known for their unparalleled military conquests, history also points to several women who played pivotal roles in warfare, whether through direct command, military advisement, or defending the territories in times of crisis. What are some of the most striking examples of Mongol women influencing military campaigns, and how were their contributions received within an empire largely defined by martial prowess?
The issue of women participating in warfare is rather controversial, I have to say. We know for certain that women were skillful in the arts of war, Mongol women, I mean, knowing how to ride horses. We have different accounts in which women are mentioned as being very, very good riders, and also were very skillful in shooting arrows, both set of skills that you need at least for warfare in the nomadic setup. However, while women, I'm sure, intervene in moments of crisis if they have to, using these skills, and enter into battle if they have to defend their own, there are very, very limited instances in the sources where we can verify that women actually participated in war. There are a few instances, though, that are seen as exceptions, if you want. One is a mention by the Persian historian Juvaini, that tell us that during the sack of the Mongol conquest of Nishapur in 1221, Nishapur, this city in the eastern part of today Iran. After the city was taken, a certain general called Togachar was killed in battle, and his wife, who happened to be a daughter of Genghis Khan, was enraged for her husband to be killed, and so she jumped into a horse, entered the city, and made a massacre, killing people in revenge for having killed her husband. Now, this story is picked up by some scholars, but cannot be really confirmed in other sources. We are not really sure that this event really happened, or whether this is actually a story that Juvain is using to embellish a little bit the sack and the conquest of Nishapur. Another example, perhaps because it was mentioned both in Marco Polo and Rashid al-Din, two of the most well-known historians of the Mongol Empire, at least of the western part of the Mongol Empire, is the figure of Kutlun, the daughter of Kaidu. And she's also gained some fame because she's portrayed in the TV show Marco Polo in Netflix. And so the story goes that this woman was very, very skillful in wrestling, and she could not be defeated. And she eventually promised that she was going to marry only to the man who defeated, and nobody could do it until she decided when to be defeated to marry the person she wanted. So this is another proof of a story by which probably we know that Kutlun existed. Whether these stories were probably true or exaggerated is a different matter. But one proper example we do have of a woman participating is given us by a historian of the 14th century in Iran, that tell us that one particular woman participated, a Mongol woman participated in battle, who is not mentioned, but she acted very bravely in one of the battles in the Ilkhanate, that is the Mongol domains in Iran, and she behaved so well in the battlefield that her name was changed to Ahmad. So eventually what I think is the takeover from this story is that in the eyes of this historian at least, a woman that performed so well in battle could not be a woman, and therefore they call it Ahmad, a male name for what is seen as a male activity. Now, even though we have very sketchy moments in which we know that women might have participated in battle, what we do know is that women had a very important role in terms of the military or the army. Women play a very important role in a way as an indirect influence in the army, because they were the owners of a lot of people. So as part of their orders and their camps and their properties, they have people at their disposal, and these people were not only shepherds that have cattle, but also there were in many cases soldiers. So whenever a campaign was done to the territories, a campaign launched by the Khan to a territory, many of the soldiers belonging to these women were to be called in, and the women need to accept to provide these soldiers to the ruler. That gave these women certain agency in terms of the army. They also mean that the spoils of war obtained by these soldiers will also go to the treasury of the women, in a way giving also economic autonomy, which in return will give them also political agency. So even though many women might not have participated in the battlefield, many powerful women and women of high status that had all these soldiers under their command, if you wish, were very, very important, play a very important role in actually the military success of the Mongol Empire.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. Stay tuned for more episodes of Timeless Mongolia, where we continue to uncover the fascinating stories of Mongolia's past and its enduring legacy.